Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program brought to you by the Rationalists of East Tennessee and the Atheist Society of Knoxville. Welcome to our program. I'm Joe Barnhart.
And I'm John Clark. We want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you are not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
Okay, and on today's show, we're going to try to dwell on the question. It's a difficult question of how did religion begin? What's the origin or origins of religion? And we'll try to probe into that some.
First, we want to tell you a little bit about the sponsors of the show. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a meetup at Barley's at a bar or eatery. Tonight is at Barley's at 5:30 in the Old City. Just look for a silver jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. And as Matt Dillahunty at the Atheist Experience says, everyone is welcome to our happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
Okay, and the Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular meetings monthly. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually a lively round discussion and sometimes lecture. And the second Sunday, our Skeptic Book Club on the fourth Sunday, mixing it up. Sometimes we'll get together for a reflection meeting, and at other times potluck and just having a good time. Play board games or something like that.
Later in the show, we'll give you our websites to visit for additional details, including times and locations.
Okay, in the news,
let's see.
It's time to get some help with college and the cost. The Freedom from Religion Foundation's College Essay Contest gives away $33,000. Did last year, and they're again to have this contest this year.
There are three categories. The Brian Bolton Graduate Older Student Essay Contest for grad students and students aged 25 to 30. The Michael Hakim Memorial College Essay Contest for college students under age 25. And finally, the William J. Schultz High School Essay Contest for college-bound high school seniors.
Yeah, and the winner receives the winner is $200 to $3,000. If you want to learn more, visit FFRF.org. That's the website for outreach events, and then student scholarships. I'll do that again. FFRF.org. Outreach events and student scholarships. Now let's get to the main program.
Right, yeah, let's go ahead and move on. I couldn't find not a lot going on in the news, at least pertaining to us that I know of. Of course, there's tons in the news.
Well, yeah, we've got a very...
I don't want to derail us from our topic here. You wanted to talk about the origin of religion, and we've got on the screen, how did religion begin?
That's good.
And it looks like we've got a phone call right away, so let's go ahead and jump into it, because we don't know what the caller's got on.
Okay, go ahead, caller. Let's hear what you have.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I would ask, can they do this? But apparently I need to ask, can they legally do this?
Okay.
I live in Cobb County.
Okay.
Oh, Cobb County. I used to play up there.
Well, good. I'm glad somebody got along with Cobb County.
Oh, sure.
Okay, they have sent post holders out to each and every person in Cobb County, and I realize I'm in the vast minority, and I don't really want to see this John Godwin guy from Dynasty, but they are using the schools up here to promote religion. Is that legal?
Well, the short version is no, but I guess we need to know a little more, and I'm not as familiar with this.
I think what the issue is a public school cannot favor one religion or no religion over the other.
Okay, look, I'll read you the flyer.
Mm-hmm.
June 9th through 14th, 6 p.m. nightly. Free passes to see Godwin will be distributed to all who attend our nightly sessions June 9th through 13th. Choose from one of our school locations and bring your whole family. Adults will be educated and entertained by nationally recognized speakers on issues that affect our country. Youth will have a band and speaker each night. Children aged 4 through 12 will have Vacation Bible School presented by a local church. You don't want to miss Godwin on Saturday, June 14th at Cott County High School.
Okay.
So you can't miss the nightly sessions.
Okay.
And it's got the school locations.
If they are renting the school, paying money to rent the schools on off hours, that's one issue, and that's not illegal.
Okay.
And if they are doing something in school hours on a religion topic, that's not considered to be within the confines of the law. Now, theoretically, in the universities, you can have the academic study of religion, and they have an excellent department at the University of Tennessee, for that matter. But that's
when I was in high school, I'm an atheist. I took religious studies to get out of English.
Right,
okay, now,
right. And
now
that's an academic.
So what you're bringing up is a question that people differ, good people on both sides.
Right.
Can there be...
I mean, they're promoting one religion, obviously. Are they going to represent them all?
Well, if they promote one, that is, if they present one in an academic environment, then they have to present other viewpoints. That's what academic objectivity means.
Okay. So technically, they've got them on a technicality.
Yeah, and I'd have to know more details to give you a good answer on that, but because I'd have to look into it, and because you can't just. But the general position is if you, most high schools don't have the academic study of religion courses. And you could have a debate as to whether that should be done, and I think you could have good, honest discussion on that. But if you're just importing somebody to evangelize, that's against the law.
Yeah. Really quickly, caller, I'm sorry, we forgot to ask you for a name or a nickname.
My name's Michelle.
Okay, Michelle. Were any of the flyers distributed during school hours to the students, perhaps?
I have no idea. I homeschooled my kids because I don't believe in religion per se, and up here they definitely promote it in their school.
Well, I'll say, I'm sure, to an extent, I'm sure that goes on. It happened when I was in school. It happens.
Yeah, it did when I was.
Some of the students that arrive at UT that go to the Secular Student Alliance have revealed that this occurs. Yeah. But the experts on this, or at least some of the best experts, are the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And if you contacted them, I don't have the information quite offhand, but
you could find it on that.
While you were kind of talking to Joe, I was trying to listen a bit, but I also looked at their Facebook page for this event. I also found a marker at the actually, I'm not sure where this is for, chambermaster.com, but this you will want to I want a director to an authority, and I would probably contact the Freedom from Religion Foundation just to make sure. This on the face of it, to me, does not sound like there's actually any legal violation.
The Journal of Church and State would be good.
Yeah. But I do share your frustration just within the community because, in the words that you used, this is, to bring people closer to God or something, and they're not saying which God, but clearly they mean one.
It's against the law to use the public schools to promote any religion.
Right, and what we're looking for, the red flag is when you have a state authority, a teacher, or someone at the school, a politician, endorsing one religion over the others outside of a personal matter. If you're a school teacher and you at the same time during class do a prayer, then you're in violation of that. So,
okay, here's one possibility. It probably is illegal if kids have social groups in the school. In other words, they meet before the school hours.
Right.
Groups of students. And then if a group of Methodists or a group of Presbyterians or atheists or whatever want to meet before school, in the school, that might be permissible.
Right, and there's
provided that no adults are doing the leading. This has to be student.
Right, yeah, that's if it's done by the students. I mean, surely I think it is built in that we can appreciate that. We want students to be able to explore these ideas. So regarding that, most of that is okay as well. So again, I'll recommend the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Joe, you mentioned secular or no.
The Journal of Church and State.
Journal of Church
and there's other journals out.
Because these are also the ACLU is really good about this. This is something where the ACLU will defend. They are very good at. A lot of religious people don't realize they're very good at defending religion as well. So
very good.
They are experts on the matter. So.
Okay. Thank you for calling from Clark County. I got lost in the mountains there and had a wonderful time.
Hey, I live up here and I've got lost before. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's get to our topic now. And thank you for the call.
It's a good call to start off with.
How did religion begin?
Well, so here's the question I have immediately jumping in mind, because we didn't get a chance to talk about a lot of this, but what do we know about how religion began?
Okay.
Because clearly there's going to be gaps. There's going to be opaque periods of human development.
Sure.
But we know, you had mentioned to me animism.
We do know that the human species in the past has practiced animism. That is, they've treated animals, treated trees as if they were animated, that is, were spirits. They've treated objects as if they were conscious beings.
Now, this is prior to worshiping like totems, where you're actually worshiping animals.
That's prior to totemism.
Okay.
Yeah. And as mentioned before the program to our friend Lee, we have a documentary of baboons. I think they're baboons, not chimps, if my memory is right. With thunder, this was in Africa. One set of primates.
Probably one clan or something.
Listening to the thunder, and apparently it scared them, and they started charging as if they were charging the thunder. Now, we have to be careful and not read into our fellow primates what they were thinking.
Because the issue is we can't interpret that much, but we can observe that behavior. That is,
and we can observe things like this. People who believe that ghosts have returned, that their relatives have returned.
Right.
We can hear them talk about this.
Well, let's back up slightly before we get there. And so we're talking about in early stages that we know of, animism, animalism,
sure. That's
totem worship, and then attributing weather patterns. And then I would think that the fertility cycle, this is something that seemed to really get a foothold
we have to
all across the board.
Now, maybe a good Hebrew scholar could correct me. Offhand, I can't think of a Hebrew word for nature. Now, there are words for the world, the Greek has physis, from which we get our word physics.
Right.
But and in antiquity, our fellow species tended to anthropomorphize. Now, that means they tended to project person-like experiences into trees, into clouds, into the wind.
Right.
And in fact, ruach, the Hebrew word for wind and spirit, seem to be the same word. And the same in Greek, pneuma. We get the word pneumatic or pneumonia, breath, wind, spirit.
Right.
And so what we're suggesting here is a possibility that the human species very early tended to treat what we call inanimate nature, or most of nature, as simply conscious-like beings.
Right, and I'm to understand that as we're children developing.
Oh yeah, children do this a lot.
Early children. I'm going to say infants. months of development, if you were to animate a box around them, they don't startle. However, at some point, the child will startle at a moving box, suggesting, again, just like in an animal, we can't communicate really with the child. I don't know what's going on so much in the mind. I mean, there's functional MRI scanners, for those of you who pay attention to tech. Even then, we're only looking at locations in the brain, and it's a developing brain. But we can at least say that there is a reaction that wasn't there before. And that, of course, is an animated object. But if we were to draw a face on it, if we were to make the face happy or sad, if we were to give it something that confuses the child, then you start to do this. So part of our development is clearly, and survival value is clearly invested into what's going on in that object.
It's a good survival value. It is better that our forefathers, our ancestors, when they were hunters and gatherers, let's say, it was much better that they mistake a big rock for a bear than to mistake a bear for a rock.
That's a false positive, right? So in the realm, we don't want false positives, but we do in that case.
You can correct them better than the other.
And we still use that principle in medicine. We want, if we tell you, hey, I think this might be cancer, it's better to go, let's treat it as if let's figure out what's going on here. Let's double check. So it's a good thing to keep that with us, but it's gone awry occasionally when it comes to these interpretations.
Well, the word common sense is a very ancient word. And it means taking all our different senses and putting them together. And put them in common, and they check each other. I can hear a voice, and I may think it's a god or an angel, but I have to check it with my other senses.
I used to, my father was a middle school teacher for about 24 years or more. And he would, we're sitting there studying, and when I was younger, I would be talking to him, and he's like, all right, answer me. And I was like, I just did. I had thought it, and this is like up until 6th grade, I had thought my response to him, and I didn't realize I didn't utter it. So my common sense wasn't functioning for me, at least. And but I attributed. I thought I actually said the words.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure all of us do something like that. That's why it's important to have others.
Yes.
And in fact, I think if a person lived all his life alone, it's very unlikely he would be very sane. I mean, it's very likely he would.
We're social creatures, and we've got documented cases of the Japanese POWs that were in hiding and came out after like 20 years.
It's hard.
A very rare case, but they certainly there were. I can't remember the specifics of this. I'm sure if you were to search Google 3 Japanese POWs 20 years in hiding, but of the 3, 1 survived. And he was quoted, we asked the guy after he'd kind of settled back in, what led to your survival? Well, it was easy to live with my comrades. But as the other 2 died, he found it very difficult towards the end there, and barely made it himself, you could say. And so we're social creatures. The take back from that, of course, that's like a case study, but the take back from it is, we're social creatures. And it's almost nutrition.
Most of us would probably end up talking to ourselves. Because we are social creatures. So so we're suggesting the possibility that, there's a passage in the Bible, for example, a very ancient story.
Let's use something we all
Saul wants to communicate with Samuel, who's dead. And he's passed a law against the necromancers or the medium who supposedly communicates with dead spirit. But he still goes to one. And this medium believes that she has brought something back to life. At least she's convinced herself, and apparently in the story, Saul. And what is interesting to me is what is called the being coming back to life in that story is Elohim.
Right.
And that's the Hebrew word, one of the Hebrew words for God. in the beginning, Elohim.
That's very interesting to me.
Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is early in the human development, people believed that their relatives and kings and others came back in their dreams and in other ways, and they were gods.
Well, right. That's another thing. Putting yourself in the shoes, behind the eyes of someone in that day, your dreams could it's very rational to think all sorts of things about dreams.
Sure.
And I would say a corollary to that is to think all sorts of things about reality, because if you realize dreams, how much of an illusion they are, but also how much they tend to speak to what's going on in your life at the time.
Oh yeah.
You had mentioned to me the difference being, at least you and I can converge on reality, the waking moments. The dreams, it's a bit harder, but we do have commonalities. So, this would be an interest, and people wrote about it, and biblical people wrote about it. So, or told stories about it.
And in the Bible, you have all kinds of cases of people believe that they, Jacob wrestled. We didn't know whether it was a god or an angel or what. He wrestled, and in the process gets apparently his hip thrown out. That's a real dream.
I only vaguely remember these things.
I woke my wife up once, and I was barking because in my dream I was encountering this dog, and I didn't know how to deal with this big dog.
Right.
I just barked back.
You just barked back. Yeah.
But it was, the point that David Hume, the philosopher, said, no, he didn't say it, and I think he's wrong. He thinks that waking life is more vivid than dream life. I don't think that's true. I think that dream life can be as vivid as waking life.
Yeah, obviously parts of our conscious are not completely active while we're asleep.
Well, when we wake up, we can't put it together.
But certainly, we've all had moments where it turned out you were dreaming, but at the time, you could not tell the difference.
Oh no, you could not.
And it may have been brief, but it was very vivid. And I don't know. It seems a silly distinction to try to make that one's more vivid than the other. Now that you mention it, at least from Hume's, he's trying to figure out things too. Now.
Go.
So all of this is fascinating, but we're saying that religion, entire rituals,
once you have these,
came from this.
If you have these beings that affects your life, then it makes sense to say, well, if they affect my life, and if they affect the weather, and if they affect the crops, and if they help us in wars, and you have this filled, I've got a book here on war in the Hebrew Bibles. Yeah. It's a very good study of it. But all cultures apparently had something like this. So if these beings presumably have an impact on the weather, on wars, on food, then naturally it's a simple question is, how do you relate to them? See, it's a simple question. Okay, we got a good question coming in. Go ahead, Brother Al. Let's hear what you got to say.
Well, I just wanted to comment on Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Okay, yeah, great.
Oh, okay. Jacob was wrestling with the angel. The angel was a theophanies. A pre-Bethlehem appearance of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Theophanies.
Yeah.
He wrestled with this angel, and the angel broke his hip, like you said. He halted on his hip from that day on. But that's when God changed Jacob's name to
Israel.
What?
Israel, yeah.
That's where Israel comes in.
Okay, well, thank you, Al.
And religion began 4004 B.C.
Was that 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or what time was that?
November 28th.
Okay. Thank you very much, Al.
Now, welcome.
Well, before
That's good. That's good.
Just so you have that answer.
Yeah, I get the feeling I'm not in on the joke there, but you guys know each other pretty well now.
He's all right.
This Baptist guy has been through college, said he was born again. He's never never been born again, because once you get born again, you can't get unborn again.
Right. Al, you're talking about Joe, my partner today. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about Joe. I like Joe. Joe's a good man.
Right. I'm fascinated with all this, and you bring up something very interesting. I mean, when you're saying that religion had a specific point that it came about, and
sure.
Right.
4004 BC.
Right.
And that was with Adam and Eve, would you say?
Yeah, and then they clothed themselves with fig leaves. God came down, Elohim.
Right.
Elohim is a plural, meaning God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Elohim is in the plural at that point.
Well,
they come down and they take the fig leaves off of Adam and Eve, and they slay 2 lambs, and they put the lamb's skin. They shed blood, put the lamb's skin on Adam and Eve, which was a picture and type of what Jesus Christ would do on the cross, shedding his blood.
Right, and that of course, for those of you at home watching, that would be the source of...
That's pretty much the fundamentalist and evangelical point.
It's the beginning.
Just because, I mean, Al, I think you'll agree. A lot of people they don't know that, and it's important to know that's part of that religion.
Okay,
I wanted to ask about Elohim really quickly though, because you brought it up, and Al's brought it up.
Okay, Al, we're going to move on. Thank you for calling though.
Hey.
All right. Well, okay.
El is a word for God. You know, you got Samuel and Ruel, Bethel. They're putting the word God on the end.
Got it.
And then Im is plural, gods. You see? And now there are several books on this, that monotheism probably developed out of polytheism.
Right.
So you got Elohim, plural gods, and then this gradually became what one Old Testament says, the plural of majesty. Now that's his way of trying to deal with the question that the plural became a singular.
Right. And
now you still have a hangover of this in the Hebrew Bible, is you have the counsel of God. And then that comes out of Ugaritic and Canaanite religions too, where there are many gods and they have a council. Mm-hmm. Now, in the Hebrew Bible, when they're trying to come out of their polytheism into monotheism, and they struggled with it for centuries.
Right. Some appear in a strange way to struggle with it now.
Oh yeah.
Not doctrinal, not with the doctrine itself, but when people try to explain what they believe, just in a casual way, it's sometimes not apparent that they believe they are monotheists. Well, but anyways.
Al came up with the notion of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Now that's mostly from the New Testament.
Right, and
which he pumped back into the Genesis text.
Now,
Everything's in the Genesis text.
If I'm not mistaken, there's no actual point in the Bible where this Trinity is something that came out of reading what we think of as the Bible.
Well, I'll tell you, that whole notion of Trinity has such a long history. You could offer an entire course just on the notion.
Right, and we probably don't want to get too much into that.
We don't want to get into that at all. We got a little call from the caller. Okay, go ahead, caller. We got another caller. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Charles from Central Illinois.
Oh, hey, Charles.
Good. Go ahead.
Your subject today is the origins of religion.
Right.
They have discovered somewhere in around, I think it is southeast Turkey.
Yeah.
A place at around 11,000 BC, I think it was. They dated it to, which was a place just before agriculture. A large, what appears to be ceremonial site. And
that's dated around somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000. But anyhow, it's long ago. Yeah, go.
Yes. So that's a very large and significantly sized area of standing stones and so forth, which took a large-scale amount of organization.
It sure did, yeah.
Yeah.
And how germane it is
Well, it's on the topic exactly, because if you have all the belief in all of these spirits and angels, the word angel just means angelos, means messenger.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
And you have in the 6th chapter of Genesis, the sons of God. Now this is in the 6th chapter of Genesis. The sons of God looked down upon earthly women, and they begin lusting after them, and they copulate.
Right.
Now, this is, in my opinion, a tale, a story. They're trying to explain. Now, these are people long ago trying to make sense of their world. Where did these tall people, these giants, come from? Some of them are in Africa, very tall people. Now, even today.
Yeah, right.
So where do they come from? Well, the theory was that these sons of God copulated with these daughters of men, and the giants came into being.
Right, and that because we're talking about Christianity, but that is not uncommon in other religions as well.
All religions are.
Hey, the earlier religions that got into actual gods, and then you had like the half man, half God, but it was not half. It was usually like 2/3 God, 1/3 man. Like I think that's Gilgamesh, right? And you know, these other rituals, because Charles mentioned standing stones and whatnot.
Yeah.
These are, wasn't that like a means to communicate? Like you're trying to experiment, trying to communicate with.
Once you take the gods seriously,
yeah,
and these supernatural beings and angels seriously, and they were worshiping angels, many people. And in fact, in Colossians, I think there's a reference to that.
Yeah, they were honored as spirits of the Lord, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
At that point, that's a huge investment into the idea by the culture.
Huge investment. And so you think of it from their point of view. If these beings have all that much power, then you've got to placate these people, or these creatures, or these beings.
Right.
That you've
or
got,
petition them somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where prayers come in. That's where sacrifices come in. If you're in a war with some tribe, and if you can give them some part of your crops, then you may be preventing the war.
Right.
So if your God is angry, then maybe you can give a sacrifice.
I see where all that comes from, right? I see how it could be put together. But I'm going to now start thinking about this through an evolutionary lens, because where religion, it seemed, wasn't very useful was understanding the weather. It didn't quite get it. I'll say there are some exceptions, perhaps the fertility rituals. I mean, it helped with agriculture and whatnot. But at this point, once you got, as Charles brought up, the investment and the ritual, now you have communities. You've got opportunity for all sorts of social development, and you see this is where I think where you and I want to get out and reach across this aisle, so to speak, to people, is that this is where religion became a very good thing in a lot of ways. I mean, and a bad thing, because now you can have wars. But
anthropologists would tend to support you. In fact, one of them, Durkheim, says that much of religion is a way, or is the process by which people come together to sing and communicate and reinforce each other, and a totem is simply like a flag.
Yeah.
It represents the rest of them.
Charles, I'm sorry, we hadn't been engaging you.
Ahead.
I just wanted to know if you had anything else for us.
The significantly older items, such as the cave paintings they discovered in France and so forth, would be a earlier stage in the timeline.
Right, yeah.
Initiations, and you're invoking the spirits for the hunt, things of this nature.
Right, good. That's a good point. Charles, we're going to go ahead and start our mid-program break here. I'd like to thank you for calling in.
Yeah, go ahead. You got.
I think actually Sam can run the video for us here in just a minute. Thanks for calling in, Charles.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's good to have Charles come in on that.
Just whenever you're ready, yeah.
You find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
All right, welcome back. That was just a short break to mention our sponsors and some information about the show. In case you're just tuning in, the subject is how did religion begin? And of course, we're not going to get quite into the super details there, but we want to talk about the evolution of religion. And we've had lots of good input, but we want to kind of recap it to bring it into perspective for the rest of our points for the show.
Yeah, to recap, let me mention this book. It's called Faces in the Clouds, and it's by an anthropologist. Another good book by an anthropologist. Unfortunately, I let someone borrow it. I think it's in Europe right now. But it's called The Ghost Dance by Weston LeBar, and that's a very good book on... This book here that I brought is also good, Creation of the Sacred, and it says Tracks of Biology in Early Religions.
Right.
Well, and what we're suggesting is, I mean, Al gave us a view of the traditional view that there was an Adam and Eve.
Right.
And then it just started right away.
Right, that's too abrupt for a science perspective. But what we were talking about before is we went from trying to figure out inanimate objects, trying to figure out the world around us, to then associating animals with certain aspects of nature. Of course, the animal you track down and kill, this is food being given to you, and so in a way, that's a worship ritual.
Some of the American natives in this country gave some kind of offerings back.
Exactly, yeah. And they used as much of the animal as they could. Of course, that probably could have happened anyways. Yeah. But eventually, we got to where Charles had mentioned we had these rituals where we have invested so much in the idea. And these are people that couldn't tell the difference between superstition. It was too early for that. You couldn't really figure out at the time.
Okay, now some of these cultures, like it's in the Pacific, the islanders can make a distinction between their magic and their skill in the boats to catch fish. They can distinguish that.
Right.
In other words, they use their magic and their religion to try to cover the areas in which their skills just simply can't handle all the contingencies.
And in a way, that's how we look. A lot of us look at it now. I mean, Newton, he understood the motions of binary bodies, and two and three, but as it got more complicated, he said that's a matter for God to take care of. Yeah. And that, I think, is a very honest, even now, I think that is a very honest way to look at it. It's okay to me. I'm still going to shy away from the supernatural aspects. Yeah. I'm okay with I don't know. But some people want to...
The problem with the supernatural viewpoint is you've got the Hindus, you've got the Mormons. I mean, here you have the notion. Now, most Christians that I know are skeptics, unbelievers when it comes to the Mormon claims.
Right.
I mean, our friend Al calling it, he's probably a skeptic when it comes to Mormonism. He just doesn't think that Joseph Smith, I mean, I'm just guessing, In fact, I'll just ask him. He's probably out there. Let's turn it on. Al, you're out there.
Al, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Do you think Joseph Smith, the Mormon founder, really got golden plates from God?
No.
Okay, you're a skeptic, are you?
No, it's a lie. The whole thing's a lie, and that's a cult.
Well, that's the meaning of the word skeptic. You don't believe it.
No, it's a cult, and you know it's a cult.
Hang on, Al.
You know what a cult is?
Yes, I do.
It's somebody
started by a man.
It's somebody else's religion you don't like.
No, it's a religion started by a man.
Okay, you're not different on that, Al. Okay.
Hang on.
That ain't what I wanted to talk to you about.
Go.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's about the Trinity.
Okay, what about it?
The Trinity can be found in all the Gospels. When Jesus got baptized, the Holy Spirit was there, hovering over him, it says so, and a voice from heaven, from his Father, saying, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." That's on the Trinity.
Okay.
You can't change the Trinity. And the part in Genesis 6 where the sons of God, those weren't angels. Those were the line of Seth. That was the godly line that intermixed with the line of Cain. When he cast Cain out into, I don't know, land of Nod, or whatever, they intermarried the sons of God that were like Christians who intermarried with non-Christians.
They were Christians back in those days, right?
No, I'm saying.
Okay, no.
I'm giving you an example, a metaphor.
Okay, how about the first chapter of Job?
What about it?
You have sons of God coming up, one of which is called the adversary.
That's Satan.
That's the Hebrew wording. Well, that's your version of it, okay?
No, it's not my version. If you look in the Greek and the Hebrew, you'll find it's the devil.
That's exactly where I'm looking. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't pull my leg.
Fine.
Okay, now, most translators know this is the adversary. That's the translation, not the transliteration.
Not the transliteration.
But it's so what's the devil? If from your view, it's Satan. What's he doing among the sons of God? That's in Job.
No, in Job, God used the devil to tempt Job because Job was
my
a
question.
perfect man.
You missed my question.
We're not asking about the book.
I'm not asking for a sermon.
That's why the devil comes up. He comes up to tempt Job.
He's called among the sons of God. Look at it in the Bible.
He comes the sons of God.
I have a question.
We got other things got to do. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Al. Well, now, Al's view is that religion started right from the first. He thinks there was an Adam and an Eve, first people, and they happened to be speaking a language just from the start.
Right.
Now, most of us know if you speak a language, you have to learn it over a long period of time. But here they are, already adults, speaking a language. And they have a belief in a God because God is walking on two legs in the garden.
Right.
Now, this is what we mean by anthropomorphism.
Exactly, yeah.
They're making gods look like human beings and talk like human beings. And he's looking for them because apparently he doesn't know where they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, of course, this is so much anthropomorphism. That's up through the second chapter in the middle of the fourth verse. Then you switch over to Yahweh, which is another name for God or another God, which these later writers put together.
Right. I mean, it's important to know for the viewers, because we had a quick conversation with Al there, and we all may have missed it, but Al has a perspective where you said transliteration, where he's pulled these ideas together and figured out one way to look at it. We need to examine these things, each piece at a time, that stands on its own merit.
When I was an evangelical Christian, I thought there was a devil. Okay, and I had been taught, of course, same as most evangelicals or fundamentalists, is that this being fell out of heaven, which is an interesting question.
Right.
I remember I had my students to ask Al Plantinga, who is a great defender, an anti-evolutionist, who defends free will. And I asked him, or had the students to ask, is there free will in heaven? I mentioned this on this program.
Right.
And he said he didn't know. And that's because he knew what the next question was going to be. If he said there is free will in heaven, and he's made a strong case how important free will was, and if you didn't have it in heaven, it wouldn't be good.
Right.
Then this means it's a possibility that you could be eliminated out of hell, or eliminated from hell, expelled. And you have stories of the devil being expelled, you see.
You mean expelled from heaven, or?
From heaven, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Expelled.
Well,
now that's the tale that's been told for centuries, yeah.
Oh, right. And back to, more to our point on religion, the evolution of it, or however it came about. This is an example of how once you invest in an idea, now that idea can turn around and work in different ways.
Yeah.
Once Al has invested in the notion of the Trinity, if he's invested so much that he then every time God, whatever word was used, came up,
he's got to see it.
He sees it only as the Trinity.
Whereas you and I tend to see how it developed over a period of time.
Now we're talking about one of our callers. We're talking about one of a human.
Yeah, his fellow human.
But the reality is that these things happened over very long periods of time.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you could do a long study of the history of the Trinity, just that one theory.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have the Cappadocian theory. Okay, you have the adoption theory. You have a diversity. Karl Barth, famous theologian of the 20th century.
Right.
You have the modal theory of the Trinity. These are different ways of talking, and they're different. They're not the same Christian view, but they're different versions. And there are many, just as you have just the churches of Christ and the Baptists and the Methodists, these are greatly diverse views in some areas. For example, the Arminians, in their view, are different from the Calvinists.
Right.
Strongly different from. And the Calvinists believe this, to be consistent, that Judas was predestined and chosen to betray Jesus.
Yeah.
Now that's a Calvinistic view by Gordon Clark, who was Billy Graham's teacher. And for his trouble, for carrying out this role of betraying Christ on this theory, Judas died and went to hell. For carrying out his role as faithfully as Jesus carried out his role in this drama.
Yeah.
And that tells you a lot about the deity in this drama.
Right. If you, as a hypothetical, if you think that the deity is real, if you accept the notions the way you put forth, then you do know something about that deity's personality. Now, I am anthropomorphizing that deity because I'm giving it a personality. However, we could just call it a trait or whatever. That tells you some information about it.
Exactly.
But the consequence, something that we want to talk about for this show, is that this can change civilization. Now, I would argue that now it doesn't change it so much because we've reached a very interesting point where we have ideas. You mentioned a religion in which separated boat mechanics versus magic. And clearly today you have Christian scientists, you have Muslim scientists, you have people who can do both at the same time. But I would argue that the science, the relatively new reasoning, 2,000 years, however you want to look at that, prevents religion from getting certain footholds in an entirety of society. And a corollary to that is that we have more versions of Christianity than words in the Bible. Right?
No.
Maybe not that many.
No.
We have a lot of them.
You have a great diversity of Christians.
Yeah.
And that's good to have that possibility in a free society where people have a right to interpret things different. Now,
I should have said verses, but
verses. But what's important is, even when a person claims to have a religious experience, It's a human being who is interpreting this experience. And even if he is telling me it's God interpreting for him, he's still a human being telling me that's his interpretation, that it's God interpreting.
That's a good point, because that's kind of, I mean, Al calls in, and he's a good guy. We have fun with him. He has fun with us. But Al, he would look at Mormonism through this lens of extremely good reasoning.
The word all the word skeptic means is you have some doubts, and you don't just swallow it.
Right.
And so everybody...
You're not gullible.
Everybody who is a believer in some things is a skeptic and an unbeliever in other things.
Right. So,
I talked to some Jehovah's Witnesses recently, and I've noticed this religion has changed somewhat. I've watched my job over 50 years at least has been to study various religions. I watched today on my computer Joel Osteen. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Now, his father in Houston was one of these fundamentalist evangelical Christians, hellfire damnation type.
Right.
His son Joel is greatly different.
Yes.
Greatly different. And I listened very carefully. It's my job to listen very carefully to each and all of these sides and learn from them. And Joel has moved away beyond his father's view toward a view. He talked today about we must not follow just our passions and our emotions. We are emotional beings. We are passionate people. But if we just follow a passion without checking it with our reason, we can do things that are very harmful to other people as well as ourselves.
Another good idea that has come about through religious investigation.
Exactly.
And I mean, that one is old too, because that's where, you're trying to understand this world. And again, we're talking about over 100,000 years of learning, trying to understand this world, and then you realize, and some religions would now call this some sort of divine spark or reasoning is a gift from God. Again, I would rather say I don't know where it comes from than point a finger at a supernatural cause. However, even when you do use a supernatural cause, you come up with an idea that is beneficial, I think, for society.
It's a good point. In fact, you could make a case like this. See what you think. That if you grew up a Hebrew and a Greek, different religions, in the first century, you're going to think, well, look at all these Greeks. They're offering all kinds of animals up as sacrifices to their gods. And then the Hebrew is saying, these gods don't even exist. But we Jews, we offer up animals to our God, you see.
Right.
And well, the Greeks looking upon the Hebrews, they say, well, that's kind of strange. You see, and each side is making the other think. Now, here comes the Apostle Paul from Tarsus. He's had a lot of relationship with Greeks as well as Hebrews. So he's coming in on the scene, and he says, how many animals does God need? I'm just looking, I'm trying to think. How many animals does God need before he can forgive?
This is a very good,
and then, of course, I would have asked, who's been eating all the meat after it's cooked?
Yeah.
But here's what I think Paul the Apostle, he believes he went to the third heaven and got information, or it came to him. I don't think he did. I think he was reasoning, and he reasons through this imaginative way. He says, okay, let's treat one of these deaths of Joshua out there. Joshua just the Hebrew word for Yeshua or Jesus. One of these Jesuses died. He came from heaven and died as the final sacrifice to eliminate all sacrifices.
Right.
This is Paul the Apostle's thinking. And now, evangelicals say this is a divine revelation. I'm taking a different interpretation. Paul is thinking through this. He comes up with this. He may believe it's a revelation, you see. But he's saying, we have to have another way to deal with this problem. There has been now once and for all a crucifixion. The Son of God has come to earth and died, and that's the end of it. Furthermore, it's the end of priesthood.
Yeah.
And now that's a major shift.
Above his time.
Above his
really,
time.
Yeah, ahead of his time, as we say. We do have a caller, but before we get to the call, because it sounds like this is pretty much what we're going to end on today.
Let's see.
Before we get to it, though, we've got a great example, a biblical example, too, of how you've got competing ideas with other religions, and we get rid of a bad idea. Sacrifice, animal sacrifice. It's a bad idea.
Once you look into another person's religion, and you say, well, don't they see that that's problematic?
Yeah.
Then you start looking back at your own religion, and you say, well, we got the same kind of problem. Yeah. So maybe we better all start rethinking. And I think this is what the Apostle Paul was doing.
Yeah.
Now, he had to formulate it in his own background, you see, but it was a major shift.
Of course, as they say, he's a person of his time, and
but it's ingenious and it's creative.
Despite that he or others appeal to some supernatural reasoning that you and I wouldn't do, it got rid of a bad idea. Yeah. It may not have always brought a new good idea in, but it changed the religion.
Changed it,
and it changed it for the good, I would say.
Yeah. Now, some of the Hebrews might say, well, but the disadvantage of Paul's view is it's still human sacrifice.
Yeah.
See, Jesus is a human in sacrifice. And are we saying God wanted Jesus, a human being? Yeah. And then there's a passage in I think the 9th chapter or the 10th chapter of Hebrews. Without the shedding of blood, there's no remission. Yeah. It's still that old view that these gods have to have blood. You see.
Yeah, right, and it's how it came about. Let's go ahead and take our call here.
Yeah, go what we got.
Hello, caller. I just want to let you know that we're closing up to the end, so could we have a name or a nickname for you?
Yes, David, I just want to make a statement about what the brother said about Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
I want to make a statement, and I'll let you comment real quick. I'll hang up and listen. Did you guys hear where they stole $666,000 out of his office there at the big church?
Right. I'm aware that there was some financial issues, and then...
Yeah, they stole it out of his office. There was a lot of cash there on one hand, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you say 666,000?
666,000.
Yeah.
That's what the news statement that I
Right.
That's almost biblical.
I was just wondering if Mr. Osteen thought maybe the devil got that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to ask him. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
I will comment on that a little bit before we close up, and that's that. For those of you who don't know, I don't know that 666,000 was the actual amount.
I don't know either.
And that could have been a real fun way to have it with the news. But the important thing is that money was missing, and they had to figure out where it came from. Now, this wasn't someone in the church. I mean, may have stole it. I don't know the details. Yeah. But what the story was under it was once the money was missing, now an investigation occurs, and they accidentally released enough information for people at home to start doing the math and saying, "Holy crap." This organization has I better watch my this organization has a ton of money, and what are they doing with it? And people have been alerted. And so
that's a good question.
It's something that we know, but private businesses don't have to release certain information, and other don't have to. And so I think that's what David, if I'm not mistaken, alluded to there. And it wasn't the amount of money that was necessarily stolen that was important, but just the revelation from it was, wow, there's a lot in there. What are you guys doing with the money? And if that much money can go missing, then surely the same amount can go missing here and there. And it's something to think about.
I'll have to plead ignorance in this area because I don't know what the score is. I don't want to then.
But I guess we're going to go ahead. Well, we got to wrap up. We got
to close up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's time to start wrapping things up. Get out your pen and paper. This has been a Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalist of East Tennessee. I'm John Clark.
And please send us your feedback, if you would. And I appreciate the calling in today very much. It's 9060 or freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
You can see the show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Knoxville station. That's CTV 12, and on ctvknox.org streaming live.
Oh, and I want to thank Sam and Lee for being with us today to help us out, and for the crew here on the TV stations here regularly.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank our callers. We had Michelle, Al, Charles, and David. Also, I want to say thank you, Al, for your considerate call. You,
it's good to have opposition.
Yeah, that was a really, those are good points, and that was directly related to the show. It was good to go.
Good, calmly presented, and it's always good to see the human beings have the diversity of opinion, and we survive anyhow.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and just want to remind everybody you are not alone. Thank you.
Thank you.